President Obama campaigned on a theme of hope and change, but one of the most drastic recent changes we've seen is in his tone. His words have taken on dramatic urgency. Here to take a look at the role language is playing in the Obama White House is communications and research strategist Michael Maslansky. He's also the CEO of Luntz Maslansky Strategic Research, and it's great to have you with us this morning.
Nice to be here.
So let's talk about Obama's words, President Obama's words. He's going to travel to Indiana, to a town with 15% employment. What do you think he should say while he is there?
Well, I think Obama has a brand. There was a reason why he was elected. It was about hope. It was about change. It was about a positive vision for the future. Everything that he says about the economy needs to be connected with that overall brand if he wants people to believe him and get behind him.
Well, let me just play you a little clip of what he said a few days ago about the economy, about if the stimulus plan fails. This is what President Obama said. Let's listen.
Because if we don't move swiftly to put this plan in motion, our economic crisis could become a national catastrophe. Millions of Americans will lose their jobs, their homes, and their health care. Millions more will have to put their dreams on hold.
So does this kind of rhetoric say to the American people, hope, change, you know, the economy will get better?
No, it sounds a lot like George W. Bush and Hank Paulson and the reasons that they used to try and get us to pass the bailout plan to begin with. And I think he's really missing the point. I think that, first, I'm not sure that it's that Americans are worried or that they don't know about what's going to happen to the economy. It's terrible out there. They feel it every day. They want to know that there's a solution. And I think the problem is that Obama's not making a case for why this is a good plan. He's making a case for why we need to do something. And I think most Americans believe something needs to be done. Well,
you know, and Americans on the other side, like Republican Richard Shelby said, you know, if the stimulus plan passes, we're on the road to disaster. So it seems like the politics of fear all over again.
It is, and that's what most Americans voted against. And so I think it really is a big mistake for Obama. I think he has lost his discipline of his message, that he's lost the focus that he had during the campaign in staying consistent with who he's supposed to be and what Americans want him to be.
And, you know, I know he's really trying because, you know, he talked with our Anderson Cooper last week, and he talked about how we shouldn't use the war on terror anymore because that connotes something negative to the Muslim world. But then when you think about, well, what else do we call that war on terror? I mean, I'm stumped.
Well, I'm not sure that he needs another name. I don't think that President Obama needs to brand the war on terror. I think he does need to move away from the terms because I think he wants to put his own stamp on his policy, and it shouldn't use the same name. There are a couple things that I would tell him if I were going to give him advice on that. The first is he can't just rename it. Coming up with a new name for the war on terror isn't going to work. It's going to sound really trite and pushed. The second is he's got to be really careful about watering down his message. If he changes a war on terror to something like a struggle or a long-term battle, it's going to seem like he's being dovish against the terrorists, and that's a big problem. And the last is that he's got to stay away from acronyms. So often when we try and rename things, we want to come up with a clever acronym, and that's a disaster waiting to happen.
Oh, you know what? You know, going back to the stimulus plan for just a second, he always calls it the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. And I think whenever most Americans hear him say that, they go, what? So how should he turf this? Is it a stimulus plan? The Republicans are calling it a spending plan. I mean, everyone has their own brand, and frankly, the Republicans have been very effective in branding this stimulus plan as a spending plan.
You know who was most effective was Nancy Pelosi, but unfortunately she did it for the wrong team, because it was she and the Democrats who started talking about this as a stimulus plan way back in the beginning. Really, what he should be trying to do is inject the terms tax relief into the title as much as possible. There are a lot of tax cuts in this plan, and they are not getting the credit that even he wants them to get because he's talking about it only as a stimulus plan.
Yeah,
so I wouldn't try calling it recovery and reinvestment. I would talk about tax relief and stimulus plan.
Well, we'll see what he says in Indiana today. Michael Maslansky, thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
John?